Dear students, we are starting today Act 2 of the drama The Fire and the Rain. In the previous class, you have seen Act 1 and the happenings of Act 1 were still in your mind, I hope. And it is from there that we are starting the next act, that is Act 2. The scene in Act 2 begins with Nithilai's village because we have seen that Yavakri was killed and Aravasu, as cousin brother, cousin had to do the funeral rites, bury him or give him a funeral, and it is only after that he could leave the place. So when the time for the appointment came, the appointed time of meeting Nitilai's villagers and Nitilai's father, when it came, Arvas was late, naturally, because he had a lot of things to do. And so here you find that he, after the funeral, he gets, he cleans himself and he comes to see her. But the thing is that the village council meeting was over. Arvasu returns after cremating Yavakri. So that's the reason for not being able to keep the time of Nitilai's father. So when he comes over, he was not let into the village and he was stopped by her brother, who informs him of her and how she waited and waited, and their father had talked to her about the proud nature of a Brahmin. And that is the point there. That is, if it were any other person, the father would have accepted the late hour or even not being able to meet the person and things like that. But because he was a Brahmin, because he was a higher caste, there was a prejudice against them. And so the brother informs him that the father there and then decided that if anyone is willing enough to marry her, he is ready to give her in marriage to that person. There were people there, and one of them was acceptable to Nithilai's father. So within that time, that is the time of the village council meeting, Nithila's marriage was fixed by her father, and it was decided hastily according to her brother, and they just couldn't say anything to the father. So her brother informs him of a condition because the brother knew that the Nithilai loved Aravasu and Aravasu also loved her. But there is that stage when you can't do anything against the decisions made by one's father. So here is that point or that stage when the brother just can't say or do anything against the father. He really wanted to help his sister and her condition because she was crying her heart out. And she's crying and weeping over Aravasu, hoping that at any moment he will come or he will appear. And she had that kind of hope in him. And in a way, she is not ready to give up that hope because he knows quite well that Aravasu will not trick her, and Aravasu is one person who keeps, even if he forgets sometimes, he is one person who is good at heart. So Nitilai was much attracted to his nature, and she knows that the fact that he is a Brahmin will not have anything to do with the decision of Aravasu marrying Nitilai. So, in a way, you find that it is drama which joined them. It is the singing and the dancing part of the drama that Aravasu was really interested in. Nitilai had taught him, and so they have become so very close. And this is the reason why Nitilai was crying her heart out. Aravasu was talking to Nitilai's brother, and hearing her plight, he asks him or pleads with him and tells him that I need only half an hour, just some time to talk to her, and I can tell her that whatever that has happened. And the poor boy was just going on and on about what made him late. And so these are reasons which one can understand. But for this person, that is for Nitla's father, it is just an affront. It is something that a Brahmin, a higher caste, had done to him, not obey the orders of a lower caste. And this is taken in such a manner, and this is why her marriage was fixed, decided there and then, and no time was given for her to go, or even for Arvaso to explain himself. So the brother said, "You can meet her only after her wedding." And Arvaso just pleads with him for half an hour, just some time, but it was not granted. Her brother and his friends stopped him because they knew that Arvaso will be coming over, and they are on top of a mountain, and beneath them in the village the celebrations are going on. And finally, so tired, weak with emotional drain, and also the depressing fact that Nithila is getting married, and the death of Yavakri, all these had taken its toll on Arvasu, and he stumbles home. That word is important. He stumbles home. He's so dead tired, and he's not looking at where he's walking, going, and somehow or other he is just going to the house or to his home. And Raibaya was awake in the hermitage, and Eros was not in a mood to enter the hermitage. He just lies in the veranda. Parvaso enters in the dark, covered in a black rug, and he is carrying a bow and a queue of arrows. With a Brahmin, we are not expecting a bow and a queue of arrows, because Brahmins are considered to be people who can speak and teach, but they don't use arms. So this is, maybe there is an exception here. Raibaya was horrified to see him, because he is the chief priest, and as such he is to remain in the sacrificial precincts for 7 years. He can't just leave that place and come home. And this is why Vishaka was so weak, and she was so lonely, because for 7 years her husband has been there at the sacrificial fire sacrifice, and she knows that it is impossible for him to leave that. And now, all on a sudden, they find him there, breaking the custom of fire sacrifice. Raibaya lashes out at him, because this is not something that you can do. You are just breaking the rules, and even if you are coming in the dark and no one had seen him, or Paravasu tells him that no one had seen him, Raibaya tells him that even if no one sees you, gods will see you. So here you find that it is impossible to get the upper hand with the Paravasu. And Raibaya was so impossible, or he was finding the situation quite impossible, and that's why he is lashing out at him. Aravasu and Vishaka gets up to listen to this exchange of the father and the son. And Rabbi is lashing out him and tells him that you have come hearing the fornication of your wife. And the words that he used is indeed not suitable for a Brahmin, especially not at all suitable for a father-in-law. But here you will find that Paravasu was confident that he'll be back at the sacrificial altar before dawn. Before anyone misses him, he'll be there. He has come in the dark of the night, and no one will know that he had escaped from there. Rabbi was angry, and he just finds it impossible to talk to Paravasu, because Paravasu was so arrogant. And you will also find that this is indeed something that he had not expected from a son of his, because Arvasu he had already left as quite useless and not adhering to the Brahmin mode of life. Parvasu he had hopes for, but he had outsmarted him, or the king had opted him for the sacrifice instead of Rabbiah. So there also you find a kind of a friction there. The anger of Rabbiah is directed against Parvasu for the king choosing him as the chief priest instead of him. So in his anger, Rabia says he is going on. He just goes out. So Parvasu and Aravasu starts talking. Paravasu asks him, well, brother, what about your acting? And Aravasu talks and says that, brother, you have told me that Brahmins do not act, and uh, and things relating to that. And so I have stopped acting, and it has been 7 years. And you know that Parvasu was really amused by that. He enjoys the superiority of Aravasu obeying him instantly, and so he is very smart about it, and he just tries to trick him and says, do you know you could repeat a question and an answer without altering a syllable endlessly and creating a whole new universe of meanings, and those meanings will be more acceptable to you, so that you can continue asking Paravasu in a different manner, and you could have got the permission. Instead of which, poor Paravasu took him at his word and did not tamper with the wording or even the repeating of the question or the syllable as Paravasu had told him, because Paravasu uses words to suit him, and this is a trick that he has with him. And so here you find that he is indeed smart, and he overrules Arvasu, and Arvasu, poor young man, has no option because of his devotion to Parvasu, obeys him and had stopped acting, singing and dancing, everything he had stopped for 7 years. And moreover, there is no one asking them for a drama because it is famine, and it is drought and famine, and there is poverty, and naturally the poverty, as a result of which there were a lot of death, and people just can't afford, or no one can really afford a drama, and so the troops are languishing. They are also suffering. They don't have work to do. So this is a situation that was existent in that country. And you know that when there is no prosperity, it is impossible for art to flourish. If there is prosperity, then people will have money to spare and money for art. And that is the condition of all the kingdoms that we have seen. And that is the same for everything. If there is no money, there will be no art. So if there is money or prosperity, then art will flourish. And there are people who just continue with art in spite of the poverty because of their desire for acting, or because of their love of art. And those people are quite different. So here, Paravasu is teaching Aravasu to reframe the questions in such a manner as to get a favorable reply, because Paravasu did not ask him not to act. He just gave a statement which Arvasu should have interpreted differently. And this is exactly what he is doing. And poor Arvasu has no skill in understanding these wordings of Parvasu with the double-edged meaning, and so he just stopped acting. Arvasu doesn't understand him and what he is meaning when he says that you can create a whole new universe of meaning much more acceptable to you, in the sense that the wording can be made to suit you. But he was so tired. At this time, he is not in a mood to understand the meaning of Parvasu's words, and he knows that Parvasu wanted to talk to Vishaga, and Rabaya had already gone, and so he also goes away to Tamarind Hill. And then comes the confrontation of Vishaga and Paravasu. And Vishaga talks, and but Paravasu speaks of Yavakri as a fool to cause the gods to bend to one's will. That's not the way to treat or to deal with gods, according to Paravasu. And he says that Yavakri is a fool, And he's not dealing with the issue of Vishaga and Javakri having a relationship and what they have done and reported by so many people. People at the fire sacrifice had also heard of that. And this is why he has come. And Vishaga says, my waiting in silence for so many years did not bring you back, but my fornication is that which brought you here, and I'm happy that you have come. After all, maybe it is that which needed to bring you here. And here, Paravasu is not at all touching this. Vishaga has been talking and talking, and finally, when the name of Yavakri came up, Paravasu says Yavakri was a fool. And you can't just ask gods to bend to your will, because you are doing penitence and you are doing a lot of self mortification in order to achieve that, which means that you are sacrificing yourself. But fire sacrifice is a formal rite and it is structured, and that will bring Indra to him. Indra can't say no to that. It is structured in such a way that there is a form, there is a unity, and it will reach the gods and will bring them to the humans who are doing this fire sacrifice, especially the chief priest. And so there is no need to beg. You are just doing something with the intention of bringing Indra, and Indra will be coming. And you can confront Indra as an equal because you have not begged, you have not gone after him. You have just stood there and did this formal rite, which is structured, and then Indra will appear before him, and the chief priest Paravasu, shedding all human weakness, will confront Indra as an equal. This is where he is a fool, because if gods do that, they'll have something else planned for him. So here you find that Paravasu has so much of scope, so much of ambition to be on equal terms with Indra, the god, not with any human beings, but with gods. His ego had gone to such an extent that he believes that he is not a human but more a god. Though he pays obeisance to his father when he meets him, and even salutes the father as is the duty of a son. The in his inner heart, he considers all these people in a contemptuous manner, and he is there in the structure to bring Indra to him and talk to him as an equal, and he will be shedding all human weakness. And when you shed all human weakness, there will be no scope for anything else between Indra and Paravasu, the chief priest. And there is a human weakness in coming home to Vishaga, and that little bit of human weakness also should be removed from himself. And this is the plan that Paravasu had in his mind. The case of Vishaga is just a chance for him to do whatever that he wanted to do. For a moment, he'll be a diamond, unscratched, immortal. And he says that he'll be as purified as a diamond, as tough and as strong as a diamond, unscratched and immortal. And Vishaga accepts his words because she is so sick of the silence. And somehow or other, Parvasu is now talking. For 7 years, there was no talk, only silence. And now he says, well, I know that I have sinned. I have gone against the rules, and what I've done is wrong. So now I'm ready for you to kill me, because she also had seen Parvasu bringing the bow and the arrow. And so she lies before him, all ready for Parvasu to kill her. Parvasu, she talks of the 7 years in the hermitage. She also hints at the lust of the old man, that is her father in law, Raibaya, and she is the victim. 7 years in the same hermitage with a uh, young bride and young woman, and this man, this Raibaya, had used her, and she is speaking of that. and she feels so ugly. So the blood becomes so very cold on hearing that, on being the victim of such an affront by a father-in-law. And so when Yavakri came, she was happy at least that it is a young man and it is her old love. And this is why she just went with him and spent time with him. And so you find here that there's a lot of things about Raibaya the Brahmin was revealed by Vishaga the woman. And Vishaga is the Brahmin, and whatever that is going on in that house is not Brahmin heritage. It is something totally different. It's more human, but at the same time, totally against the rules. And then Raibaya comes in and he says he feels humiliated when the king chose his son as chief priest. It was too much for him. So Vishaga also tells him that your father feels cheated, and he took all his anger and humiliation on the son's wife, because the son has already left the hermitage. He is doing the fire sacrifice. So all this humiliation, all this hurt, he had taken out on the son's wife, and not just in words alone. And he had really used her and imposed himself on her. So this is what Vishaga had to speak to her husband without the others listening to him and listening to it. And then Vishaga explains that she was happy to see Yavakri, the young Brahmin who was her old love, and this was better than the wizened body and the scratchy claws of Rabia. So here you find that a lot is revealed. Here the explanation as to why she went with Yavakri. Yavakri is after all his brother in a way. So it is like using another brother. So here Paravasu aims his arrows at her, but at the last minute changes the direction when Rabbeya, after his walk, he had given time for Paravasu to talk to his wife Vishaka, and after some time he enters the hermitage. And Paravasu, though the arrow was aimed at Vishaka as she had instructed him, suddenly changes direction and shoots Raibeya. Raibeya was killed instantly by Paravasu. There was nothing about it. And so here you find that it is indeed a shock to the audience also, because we are not expecting a Brahmin killing another Brahmin, especially a father, in spite of everything that he had done, as per Vishaga's words. And Vishaga says that you have no idea of, you are not waiting even for the part of Raibea. You didn't ask Raibea what I have told is true or not, and you are not getting a chance for his explanation. But Paravasu has got an explanation, and that is that that is, Rabeya had intentionally called forth the Brahmarakshasa and killed Yavakri, a Brahmin, just to disturb the fire sacrifice, thinking that his son will be supreme. In order to stop that, he had deliberately done this. And as chief priest and the son of Rabeya, he is making sure that his father will not further try to stop the fire sacrifice. And that is an explanation which we'll have to believe. Other than this, that is, maybe he has got a lot of anger in him and he killed his father. That is the simple enough explanation. But he says, this is why I'm killing him and not because of you, Vishaga. And Vishaga was so deflated because she thought that her husband has taken vengeance on the father who had hurt her as the wife, as his wife. And no, it is not so. It is something more. And whether the father does this with the wife, he is not bothered. He is bothered only about being the chief priest and finishing off the fire sacrifice and bringing Indra before him. So you can imagine the mental attitude of Paravasu and the emotions of Vishaga on hearing this from her husband, who is indeed a diamond. Okay, the hard man. Aravasu was talking to himself on the tamarind hill, and he was talking he is talking and talking and talking about why he was late at Nithilai's village. We know why he was late, and he needs to talk about it to somebody. Nithilai is not there to listen to him, and no one allows him to reach Nithilai. So somehow or other he is talking to himself in the hope that Nithilai somewhere will be listening to that. Moreover, he had almost gone dead or gone out of his mind with worry, with sorrow, with a lot of emotions. And at this time, Paravasu calls out to him. And before he arrives, Paravasu had plucked the arrow from Raibaya because he doesn't want the evidence there. Paravasu lies to Aravasu, saying that he mistook Raibaya for a wild animal and shot him. But we have seen that the arrow was pointed at Vishaka, and he had been listening to the footsteps or steps of his father and had redirected directed the arrow and had shot Rabia even before Rabia gets a time gets something to speak about himself. He doesn't want Rabia to speak further and kills him instantly, which is a deliberate instance, and there is no mistaking him for a wild animal. But he lies to Aravasu in the presence of Vishaka. Vishaka is the only witness who knows what her husband is. And Paravasu speaks of atoning for father's death. And he says, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do something because father's death is untimely. And he doesn't say that I killed father, I have mistakenly killed him. That part is left to totally alone. And then he uses the word we instead of I. It is he who should do this atoning, and he should do the penitential rites and things like that. Instead, he says we should do, we instead of I. So he tells Arvasu that it is his duty, since Paravasu had to return to the fire sacrifice. That's why he used the term we. We have to do this, we have to do that. Aravasu is to perform the rites of penitence, says Paravasu. And Vishaga tries to dissuade Aravasu, telling him, well, don't do that because you are not the one to do it. And she knows what her husband is trying to do. There has been enough bloodshed already, enough tears. So she tells him, live your own life. You can't lead or you can live the life of Parvasu or for Parvasu. But somehow or other, Aravasu was beyond everything. And it just doesn't enter his head that a crime was committed. He started crying out, and Paravasu says, now it's not the time to for dramatics or even the tears and crying or weeping. We have to think practically. We have to do something. Prepare the funeral pyre immediately. He doesn't want anything to happen to him or to his post as the chief priest, and he wants everything to be off or to be done within no time at all. But Parvasu speaks to Arvasu, knowing fully well that his brother will not say no to him. So it is indeed. Arvasu says, "Okay, brother, I'll do the because that day, it is the second time that he is doing the funeral rites. First Yavakri, and before the night is over, before the day is over, he had to do the funeral rites of his father who was killed by his dear brother. He had the shock, one shock after the other. Somehow or other, Ravasu is taking it well, in the sense that these are shocks that he had not even he just had nothing to do with. but somehow or other he is involved in all this, or he is made to be involved in everything. And so both Raibaya and Paravasu, they are ordering Arvasu about, and knowing fully well that he is obedient and he is a very simple human being. And so without saying no to his brother, he agrees to do both the funeral rites and also the and also to perform the rites of penitence, because it is patricide. Who did that patricide is another matter. So Paravasu is the one person to do that, but he is asking Aravasu to do it because he had to return to the fire sacrifice. So here you find a lot of things happening here, in the sense that Paravasu is really using Aravasu. Aravasu is an actor, and an actor is a person who has got a lot of simple heart. A hardened person will not be able to become an actor. Art deals with the heart or a lot of emotions, and Paravasu will never be a good actor. He will act, but he will be a person who is will be using others to his according to his plan, and he had no compunction at all for his father or for people who will stand in his path. And luckily, Aravasu is not in his path. And if he ever come to know that Aravasu is better than himself, he will immediately try to remove him from that path. Yavakri was already done with, and he doesn't think much of Yavakri. And Raibaya, his father, is the one person about whom he has a lot of anger. But the thing is that he did not show his anger. He continued to burn that anger, or to lighten the anger, and it just continued burning. And finally, he got a chance to kill Rabbiah. The explanation that he gives is indeed something worth believing, but the thing is that whatever that is the explanation, the thing is that he committed patricide. He killed his own father, and that too during a fire sacrifice. And he thinks that no one will know. And as his father says, even if the people will not know, the Devadas or the gods will know. They have eyes, they will know what the human beings are doing and what they are hiding also. But Parvasu has great ambition of meeting Indra face to face and being on equal terms with him, shedding all human frailty. And this is the moment that Parvasu will become almost a god. And this is his ambition. He's not going to beg. He's bringing Indra from the heavens by the with the structured sacrificial rites, funeral, the fire sacrifice, and the gods have no option except to be there. And so it is not begging, they are being brought from there, and he will be facing Indra, the greatest ambition of Paravasu. So here you find a man who is born a Brahmin and brought up as a Brahmin, but the ambition and the ego in him is much, much, much worse than anything. And that makes him a Chandala rather than a Brahmin. He thinks that he is good, but the goodness of a Brahmin lies in the fact that he worships God, and thus he has known Brahman, and so he'll be almost godlike. But this man is behaving much worse than a worse person. And so here you find the confrontation with the father is over, Vishaga is over, Paravasu is now talking to Aravasu, and in a way forcing him or putting it on his shoulders that it is his duty. It is his duty. Understand? And poor Aravasu was so tired mentally and physically, and he has no words to say to this brother who takes him for granted. And even though Ushaga, his sister in law, tells him not to accept it, it just doesn't enter his head. And Paravasu knows quite well that the woman's voice will not be listened to by Aravasu. and Paravasu will be the only person who will be able to command Aravasu, and it is how it happened also. So you'll find Aravasu agreeing to do as Paravasu had instructed him to do, and does the funeral rites and also the penitence. And we'll continue Act 2 again in the next class. Thank you.